welcome back for another video. My name is Tanya, for those of you that are new here, and I'm a watercolor and acrylic artist. So spring has arrived and the birds are definitely out, so I thought I would paint one for you. So I decided to paint a little chickadee. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so to get started, I have my Arches watercolor paper. I have 3 Grumbacher paintbrushes, a size 000, 2, and 6. I have my pencil, my eraser. I have several Winsor Newton watercolors. I'll let you know what color I'm using as I'm going along. And I have my paper towel and my water. All right, so to get started, we're just gonna lightly sketch out our little chickadee. And I kind of want him looking towards his tail. So I'm gonna position him kind of like in a little ball shape, but kind of looking towards his tail. All right, so you're just gonna start out kind of in the middle of your page. You don't wanna be too close to the edge up here because we want a little crown of flowers on his head. We will just put the head right about there. And you can make this as small or as large as you want. Just be sketchy about it. I'm gonna round out where the little face is gonna be. I'm gonna put his little beak over here, his little belly's this way. And I think I'm gonna peek his little tail out right there. And his little beak like that. So it's kind of like he's looking this way, he's curled up and he's looking towards his tail. And then I'll put little legs, and I'll probably just put some kind of ground right here. And if you want to round this out, you can a little bit more. It kind of comes to a little bit of a point over this way because that's where his wing is going to be. All right, and then you can go ahead and erase your lines that you don't want to use. And you can even lighten up your pencil at this point, which I'm not going to lighten up my areas because I just want you to be able to see it on camera. So it's just a very generic little drawing. All right, so you have something kind of like that. So he's just looking towards his tail. All right, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna start with a light wash of Payne's Gray. And I already had placed some here from a previous painting. So I'm gonna go ahead and re-wet that. Just make a nice wash, nice and light. And we're gonna go around his eye. Actually, you know what, let's pencil in his little eye. His eye is gonna go right around here, okay? And then the chickadees have like that little black head, kind of wraps around the eye, like that. So we're gonna go ahead and fill that in with some Payne's Gray. Kind of go around your eye because we want a little bit of a highlight left in the eye. And we're gonna go ahead and darken this up later because it is more of a black. It's like a dark, dark Payne's Gray. And if you're using black, that's totally fine. Black is good too. And it's got a little bit, I'm gonna bring this down a little bit closer to his nose. Just wrap it a little more. And then I know that they've got a little bit like under their chin area here. Now, if you wanna Google an image of chickadees, there's so many photos out there. Just grab one that kind of grabs your attention. Okay, just like that. And then his little beak is kind of a dark gray also, but I'm not gonna fill it in all the way because I do want a little bit of a highlight on there. Oh, and by the way, I'm using my size 6 for this right now. I'm gonna start going around and almost outlining his body because I just wanna add a little dimension here. Not too much. And you can actually even just clean off your brush, dab it off on your paper towel, and start blending it in more towards his body here, almost like it's just shadowed. Just like that. Okay. And if you want, you can kind of come in, I'm moving to my size 2. If you want, you can kind of come in and just start feathering out very gently some of these darkened areas on the bird. Just feather them out a little bit. I'm just using water. And I'm just kind of going over that edge really carefully. All right. I'm gonna now add a little bit of my yellow ochre. So I'm gonna get that wet. Because I've seen some photos where they have a little touch of that yellow ochre-ish kind of color there, creamy caramel color. And I'm gonna let that bleed right into what I just did. And I went back to my size 6 for this. All right, and if you want to bring it all the way around his little body, you can. No big deal. I'm sure they all look a little bit different. I'm gonna bleed that in with just some water. And I wanna leave his belly in this area nice and white because they are more of a black and white type of bird. I'm gonna go in and add a little bit more of my Payne's Gray, just deepen up what I have already. Careful around his eye again. And if you go over his eye, that's totally fine. It's gonna be a black eye anyways. You just want to leave some highlight. And if you didn't leave highlight on accident, don't worry about it. We can always go in with like a little white ink or something at the very end. I'm just gonna go over around his body again, just to deepen that up, give it a little bit more depth. And then I'm going to add a little bit more in here. Like that. On his beak a little bit. All right. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my size 2 again, and I'm just gonna start bleeding that out. Very gently, just right on the edge of all that. I used a little too much water there. Try not to get too much water on your paper because then it starts to make a little bit of a puddle. I had a little drip come, it dropped right off onto the brush here, and that happens sometimes. There. Now you can make your little bird as chubby as you want. And let's see, I'm gonna go back to my size 6. I'm gonna start filling in the tail here a little bit. Now the tail has got a little bit of the Payne's Gray and the white on it, just depending on what image you're looking at. This was just an image I had found last night. So I'm gonna leave a little bit of Payne's Gray, a little bit of white, kind of brush it in a little bit there. And you can bleed that right into his little belly area. Super cute. All right, so I'm gonna move over to my 2 again, and I'm gonna take a little more Payne's Gray, and I'm just gonna do his little legs coming down, just like that. Darken that up a little bit. And it's okay to bleed into his body. Kind of looks nice, like a little shadow under there. And then I'm gonna do a ground here. Let's see, I think I'm gonna wet it first. And then I'll take a little bit more of that yellow ochre, I think. And I will just put it right in there. And I think I'll take a little of that Payne's Gray as well, just to mute it down a little bit, give it a little shadow. Okay, you can blend that out if you want to. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and dry my little bird, and we're gonna add another little layer to it. Okay, so he's pretty dry, and I'm gonna go in with my Payne's Gray once again. Just make a nice little wash on my palette here. And this time I wanna go a little bit darker. And I did not wet my page. I'm just putting another layer on dry paper. I want this part of his fur, feathers, to be a little bit darker. There, go down his beak a little bit. Cute. And I'm gonna do the same thing right under his little neck here. You want to connect them there, and then you can even bring a little bit down onto his tail. And then if you want to put a little bit more under his belly, like it's a little shadow, you could do that. Bring it down his legs. All right. And then maybe with just some water, you can go over that again and bleed it out once again. Just to soften up that line a little bit. Perfect. All right, I am going to put a little Payne's Gray, I'm using my number 2 again, under his beak, just to kind of outline it out a little bit there. Because we didn't do anything to the bottom of the beak. We only put the Payne's Gray on the top of the beak. Super cute. All right, and I'm gonna take some Payne's Gray and I'm gonna fill in his eye right now. And this is going pretty fast. I mean, it's an easy little painting. I just wanna make sure that I leave a little bit of white around his eye. And that bled out a little bit because my paper was still wet here. It's okay, if you wanna bleed that out even more, go for it. It's the same exact color. Okay, so see how I left a little bit of white around his eye and a little bit of a highlight in the middle of his eye? Perfect. And actually what I'm going to do, since that's still wet, I'm going to drop in a little bit more Payne's Gray here and there. Deepen it up even more. Now if you want to just use black, you could do that. Payne's Gray's just got a little bit more of a blue undertone, so it gives it a little bit more depth. It looks, it doesn't look as flat as black. Put a little under here. Let that bleed out. Beautiful. And I'm just pouncing my brush right now, just adding a little bit. And I think I'll do a little bit on his tail too, just to deepen it up a little bit more. And then maybe right under his legs also. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna take my size 000 and I'm gonna do a little Payne's Gray for his claws. And I'm just gonna kind of come around a little bit, very little thin lines. I'm just gonna do 3. You could do as many as you want. Actually, maybe I'll do another little one in the back. I don't know, I think they've got like 4 little claws, like 1 wraps around the back and 3 in the front, something like that. I was trying to figure it out, but I'll just do 3 in the front and 1 in the back. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry him again, and we're gonna start on his little crown of flowers. Okay, so there's several ways you could have done this. You could have penciled out his little flowers first and then just kind of put the Payne's Gray or black around them. I chose not to do that, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lighten up some areas in here, especially since this is so dark, it's gonna work really well. I'm just using my 000 again, and I'm gonna come in and just do like some little dots and maybe like some little petals. I'm just gonna try and lift up some of that paint. Just lift it up. See how it's lifting it up really beautifully? And that's gonna be like a little flower. Then you can add some color in there. So again, you could have left this alone and just left it the white paper and gone around it, or you could do what I'm doing right now and just kind of lift the paint. So just kind of have an idea of where you want to place your flowers. And I'm just dabbing it off. So I get it nice and wet, saturated. I work it in there really well, and I dab it off with a little paper towel. Try not to have too much water on your brush, because then it will make a little bit of a puddle on your painting. And just work your way around where you think the flowers are going to be. Like that. I'll do another one here. So just lift up as much as you can. Perfect. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start adding some flowers around here. I'm gonna go back to my size 2. If you wanna stick with your size 000 or 1 or whatever you have, definitely do it. I'm gonna go in and add a little bit of my opera pink. So I'm just gonna get a little wash of my opera pink going here. You can pick any color you want, because these are just gonna be fun little flowers. And I'm gonna start with one that's kind of on the outside here. I'm just gonna go kind of in a spiral motion. Maybe I'll do another one over here. And you want them kind of close to his head or her head, because the crown is just gonna go right on the tip of the head here. And I'll bring in a little bit of my cad yellow. And I'll add some yellow in there. Now, if this is not showing up as vibrant as you want, you can always go ahead and add a little bit of white if you want to. Let's see if I do that. Let me pull my white in there. Add a little bit of white, maybe lighten it up a little bit. I know they say don't use white in watercolor, but I usually do. I like it. See how that lightened it up really quick? Even when I was in art school, they'd always say throw away your white as soon as you get your little color palette here. I never threw away my white. It's nice to even just lighten up colors once in a while. All right, and I think I'm gonna let's use some of the sap green. Make a little wash of sap green. Okay, put some greenery in there. And it's okay if your flowers are all starting to bleed together. I like that look. If you don't, then just move on to another section. And let that first section that you painted, let it dry a little bit. Look how pretty that's starting to look. I'm gonna add a little blue in there. I've got a little blue-green here. No, actually, this is my turquoise. I'm gonna add a little turquoise in here. And you could just dot around. Doesn't have to look like any specific flowers. Okay, I'm letting all those just bleed in together. And I'm gonna add a little bit more of my opera pink. And then I'm gonna dry this and see if we need another little layer. Actually, I'm gonna lift up a little bit of that blue, got really dark right in there. Just lift it up with a paper towel. Add a little more of my pink. When the blue and the pink hit each other, it makes purple, which is really pretty. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry that and see if I need another little layer. All right, so I'm gonna take my size 2 again, my opera pink. I'm gonna add a little more pink down here, pink in here, and I'm just kind of making them look like little spiral roses. You could do daisies, you could do whatever you want. I just wanted to add a little more pink, and I think I want to add a little more yellow too. Right in there. Just to bring in that yellow color. All right, so while we're letting that dry, I want to go in and fluff up. Right now, this looks a little too flat for me here. Crisp, I should actually say, this looks like a little bit of a too crisp of an edge here. I want to just rough that up a little bit. So I'm going to go in with my Payne's Gray. And I've got my 6 again. And I'm just going to go in and just kind of rough up that edge, because I know birds are kind of smooth looking, but I do want it to look like the feathers are just coming out a little bit here. There. Try not to touch your flowers, because then you'll start adding the Payne's Gray in there as well. See how that just roughed it up a little bit? It just made it look like his feathers were ruffled. And I think I'm going to do the same thing over here. Add a little more Payne's Gray. So you could just keep adding a little bit of Payne's Gray wherever you feel it needs it. And I think I want to put a little bit more of that yellow ochre on his body. Just down here a little bit. Or this way. He was just looking a little too flat for me. And I'll bleed that in, just water. Just pouncing my brush a little bit. You don't want to cover up your white spaces. And you know what? I think I want to do a little bit of splattering on the background as well. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then I might add a little bit more greenery to his crown here, and then maybe a little bit of splattering in the background. Okay, so he's nice and dry. The only thing that's still a little wet is some of the flowers here. I'm going to go in with my number 2 paintbrush, a little bit of my sap green again. I just want to add a little bit more greenery around here. Just fill in some empty spots. Just like that. Okay. There. Super pretty. And I wasn't really doing any kind of leaf shape. I'm just kind of dabbing it in there. It's so small that it's not that detailed. You can get away with that. If this was a bigger picture, you'd really want to make these look like flowers and leaves. But since it's so far away, you just want to give the suggestion of that being like a little flower crown. That's all. And I think I want to go in. I'm going to pick up my 6 again. I do see that I want to put a little bit more of that ochre color down here. Bring a little bit on his body this way too. Maybe a little bit in the tail as well. All right. Okay, so the splattering, I'm going to choose, let's see, I might choose blue. So I'm just going to get a nice little wash of my turquoise here. I put, I'll show you what I was doing. I just did a nice little wash of my turquoise, and I'm going to take another brush and I'm going to splatter around him. Just a little bit around the body. Beautiful. I love it. Now a little bit got on his body. That's okay. Just as it's still wet, take a little paper towel and just lift it. Wherever you see a little bit of that color on his body, just lift it right away with a paper towel. Perfect. All right, I'm going to dry this one more time, and then I think I'm going to add a little bit of pen to this. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a little bit of my burnt umber, and I decided I wanted a little bit more of a shadow under his body. So I'm just putting in a little bit of burnt umber right under his body, just like that. Darken it up just a little bit right there. Perfect. That way it just gives a little bit of a shadow on the ground. All right, so now with the pen, I'm gonna use my archival ink. I've got my Micron size 05, and I'm just gonna go in and just kind of crispen up his beak a little bit. And you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just like the look of pen and watercolor together, but you do not have to do this part. I'm going to crispen up around his eye a little bit. Just gives it a little bit more depth. Okay, and then maybe just some little feathers on his tail here. All right, so I just kind of went in and just added some like little zigzag marks. I think I'm gonna go around his little legs and those little claws again. Now, just be careful, because if you wanna dry this first, because I did just go in and rework that, so it might bleed a little bit. Let's see what else. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in on some of these flowers and just do kind of like little spirals. All right, if you want to, if you still have some pencil around your bird here, go ahead and just start erasing it. I do have some pencil lines here. I'm gonna erase those. All right, he's so cute. I don't know if there's anything else I even want to do to him. I think I just like him like that. I mean, if you want to go in and just deepen up some more around his edges here, you can definitely do that. Maybe with a broken up line, just kind of outline him a little bit, but again, just a broken up line. You don't want it to look like a major outline. Maybe even just here a little bit, roughen up some of those feathers. And maybe on this side. There. I think he's so cute. He turned out beautiful. So you can go ahead and change up whatever you want. You could do different flowers. You could do different color of splattering. Just kind of Google an image of a chickadee and just kind of get a position that you like. This is the position that I liked, was him looking at his little tail. But you can use anything you want. So that's just to give you an idea how to paint one. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up, and you can make a comment in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos like this one. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.